Hello, and welcome to a Q&A book discussion about my new book, The Setup. And
Yes.
thank you very
Happy
much.
birthday, John.
Thank you very much. I'm very, 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 very fortunate to be joined by Margot Douaihy,
Hello.
Ana Reyes, and Scott Brown.
Hi.
And who are you?
And I am Jon Wynn with a slight echo.
There is a slight echo. Oh wow, it's the acoustics.
Yeah, it's the acoustics in this massive place.
In
Are
this,
we actually in a setup right now?
We are.
I know.
Is there a double mirror?
One.
Yes.
Is there a
I did do a
sociological
little-
experiment happening in this very moment?
I did do a little setup. The lights, the
Oh,
sound, I did do a little setup.
it's a constructed environment.
The very much the idea of it is to freak you out into thinking that everything around you is
A furniture store.
a possible furniture store. That somebody's trying to do something and get something over on you. So yes, I expect you to be a little bit cynical about the world around you, unfortunately. So if you're feeling a little claustrophobic or fearful that there are forces beyond us that we don't know anything that we don't quite understand,
you're right.
then yeah, right. I think yeah. I mean, that's just how things are. So I thought it would be really nice to have all of us come together and just have a chat. But I would love to hear what you all thought. You had a chance to read some of it, if not all of it. And I would just love to have a conversation with three of the smartest people I know.
Who is that? Oh, gosh, no,
If you had
two.
to rank us,
Yeah.
Oh,
by
and smartness.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Of the
from
smartest.
one to
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely the people behind the camera who figured out the echo.
Yeah, that was very smart.
That was that
They
was
figured
they're
that out.
they're both above
smart enough
anyone
not to get in front of the camera. That's the other.
Exactly. That was a question I wasn't prepared for.
I would like to talk about cults.
Oh,
Yes. And
great. Yes.
I love the way that you play with cults in this book on so many levels. You have, of course, the, church and the unification, that idea, and the cult of Vegas, the cult of, I don't know, American capitalism and illusion. But I even think the way that, I don't know, the cultish connection that we have with genre is something that I'm always negotiating and navigating. So let's talk about cults. I mean, I do the favorite cults, Heaven's Gate
Yeah.
right here, but like also
Yeah.
in here.
Yeah.
Let's
The
talk about
cults,
cults.
the bands,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
I was thinking through, there were so many aspects of this book that I adore in terms of performance and identity and who's playing who's double crossing whom. But really I latched onto cults, like specifically.
So when I was getting my master's degree at UNLV in Nevada, Las Vegas, I was assigned a class called the Sociology of Alternative Lifestyles. And being a grad student and not really knowing what to do, I went to do what every new instructor does, and that's find guest speakers. And so I had a Hell's Angel come in. And then a couple of other folks, but also a Scientologist and somebody from the Universalist Church. And so they came into the class, and my students would read a little of the sociology behind it, but then they would get to ask questions to the folks who came in. And with under the one rule, don't embarrass John. That was like the number one rule. And the students were really good about it. But they did both with the Universalist Church and with the Scientologists, the students would politely ask questions and they would say, next question. And they would not answer, they would go out of their way to kind of not answer certain things. One of them, and I won't say who, I realized halfway through the lecture that they had done background check on me. So they said, you're from New York, but you don't have an accent. And I was like, oh, right, because I'm up from upstate. And one of them said, oh, you have a ring, but you're not married. And as the students were talking and asking questions, I was kind of going through the conversation, the pre-conversation that I had with the guest, and I got really freaked out.
Yeah.
So I will say the cults have ever
Alright.
since then
I'm gonna go on
was
and
fascinating.
say that wasn't the Hell's Angel.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, maybe you should sell the biker gang.
I don't know. That would be great. It's not the Scientologist who does it. It's actually like, well, I found some rather interesting things about you, Marford. He gets on his giant dossier. That's
Love your
They
Hell's
put on
Angel
the-
voice.
that's my
That's a great Hell's Angel voice.
I just want to tell everybody that character is going to recur several times.
Right. I was gonna say, I
So
thought that
great.
you were gonna, I thought we agreed we were gonna do it later in the hour, but
Yeah.
you were
Yes.
you just at minute 6.
If you'd
you're
been
just,
listening to me, I was going to say I'm going to spring it early, and you were kind of trying to
I was
suppress
kind of-
that, but
Yeah.
I'm not
I said
gonna-
no, I said
That was during the talk check.
One thing I loved about, speaking of the cults, was sort of that sociological perspective on brainwashing, which was something I had not
oh, well,
thought about.
right.
Yeah.
And I think I don't want to spoil anything, so I'll be very careful, and please stop me if I'm spoiling anything. But the idea that we all look at people in cults and we're like, how could they ever, like, what were they thinking? How do you end up someone like this in a cult? But the sort of perspective on brainwashing that's presented in the book was kind of different from that. And it really actually kind of flipped my understanding of how I always like to think of myself as somebody who could not join a cult, who would not be susceptible to joining a cult. Your book made me wonder a little bit uncomfortably. Well, maybe I could, like, if I was in the right place at the right time.
I have an MLM strategy that I like to share. I so agree. I so agree. And I think that's really the kind of low key, there's a quiet subversion of the book. And I think that that's part of that, where you see how you can kind of reduce things to its not scientific necessarily parts, but like how you can manipulate others, how you can even, I don't know, see the understory and the shock of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't heard that before, and I hope I'm not giving anything away by saying this, but just to kind of pick up on what you're saying, the whole idea of, like, brainwashing doesn't actually exist in the form that we think of. And the most interesting part was when somebody says, like, but what about deprogramming? That's a big thing. Deprogramming is a big thing. And then the specialist in cults or NRMs, religious movements, or whatever, replies, the only people who talk about deprogramming are those who claim to have been programmed.
Yes, that was interesting.
That's fascinating. Like, I never thought of it that way. And of course, it sheds light on other aspects of the book too.
Did you have a model for Dr. Levesque? Is that how you pronounce it?
Oh, Levesque. Yeah. It's the one. So there's 3 characters in the book. One of them is a professor, and at the beginning of my writing of it, that professor was going to be a sociologist, and I realized that sociologists are are boring, and so I thought it would be really great to have a different kind of professor, and one that was more connected to the city itself.
And what department?
I am in the English department.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Not sociology at UMass Amherst, which is in the logo at the bottom of the little screen there.
What's the mascot?
Minutemen.
Yes.
Go Minutemen.
I almost said musketeers.
Musketeers.
Yeah, that would have been. I didn't say that.
But so one of the characters is, but I still had a sociologist, and the sociologist does a little bit of didactic kind of talking about what cults are and what their background is. And so
I love that.
Yes.
it is, I kind of pulled most of the sociology is underneath and undergirds the whole thing. But that was one of those moments where I thought it would be really nice to have a character speak a little bit to it. And I think you're all bringing up I appreciate that kind of energized your thinking about how the social dynamics of a situation are such that they can shape somebody's understanding, reshape somebody's kind of perspective to the point where they become a part of a group, kind of through what I think it was a sociologist who came up with the term love bomb, but it might not be a sociologist, I can't remember. But the idea that there's just kind of this pouring of love, this wrapping around of somebody, bringing them in. It's certainly there are certain people who might be predisposed, but that it is kind of a sociological phenomenon, not as much a psychological phenomenon. And I love that you picked up on that, and it makes a lot of sense because your book was one of my favorite books in the last bunch of years about the kind of unreliable narrator, how somebody starts losing their grip a little bit, right? And not that I was very much interested in the idea of how very kind of normal everyday surroundings can actually shape us and redirect us in ways that we're not fully aware of. And so I think that that's kind of so the cult and getting somebody interested in the cult is a reason why it jumps out at you, I think. And that's because it's the most, kind of diluted, pure cut cocaine of people being manipulated.
Mhm.
But the whole book is about people being
Yeah.
manipulated, right?
In the same turn, religion is a cult as well.
Mhm.
And the boundaries are blurry in the book, I
Mhm.
think, which is really interesting to make that a kind of intentional
Mhm.
distinction. And you both, in your books, there's both Clonopin as well.
Oh,
Yes, there's
Nice.
Clonopin connection.
nice. That's
Is that some branding?
Yeah, I was just
It's like-
I was just gonna say that's right.
Big Pharma.
Yeah.
We're with Big Pharma, actually.
You're
Yeah.
To disclose.
Set up by
Yeah.
Big Pharma.
Yeah.
It turns out, right?
Set
Well,
up.
that's right. There's
They're
a
gonna
couple
move
script-
so much Clonopin with this.
Actually,
Yeah.
it was placed in
Right.
order. Just
Right.
yeah.
before he jumps
Set
out.
up at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's going to be a link that we'll
Yeah.
put in. Tracy can put in. You just link there, and you just get a prescription. Yeah.
To the
Yeah.
upper
To
right
the-
corner.
yeah. You know how they do that? They're always like pointing.
They always do
pointing.
it.
Oh, yeah,
Amazing.
they do.
We're not going to do that at all.
No,
No.
we're not that.
On the social media.
Yeah. On the social medias.
Speaking of what you were saying, I wanted to so thinking about noir, which Margot and I have been corresponding about
Yes.
sort of about the genre
It's got
lately.
lots of noir as well.
Yeah.
Outing your love of noir.
This
Basic.
is
Oh, we all love noir.
this is where I'll admit to it. This is where I break that big news.
Yeah.
I love one of the most popular genres on the planet.
Yeah.
And what I thought was so interesting about this was, as far as like the noir thing, is the perspective of noir being like bleak and dark, and and that is very much this, but in a way I had not seen before. So speaking about that sort of the sociology undergirding it, just the little details, like the fact that when you go to a salad bar, the plates are weighted and all the expensive things are at the end. I had never thought about those things before. And just the different ways that things are set up in Vegas to separate you from your money.
Yeah.
It's caused me to look around since I've been reading this book over the last week, look around and be like, how many times am I being sort of subtly manipulated?
Yeah.
And so in that way, I felt like the noir perspective was just so perfect, because it is really dark to think about all the manipulation that we're subjected to every time we leave the house.
Yep.
Or before we leave the house, as soon as we open the computer. And yeah, like that, it chilled me in a way that other noir books have not, because I think it's a different perspective than I've seen in other noir books.
And like a scary salad bar. I think there's
Yes.
some like horror salad bar
Yeah.
book that I could maybe write next.
Yeah.
But even before that, again, the religious kind of
100%.
influence of
Yeah.
like, before you even open the computer, of like looking out the window and saying it's a beautiful day. Thank you God for making this beautiful day.
Mhm.
You know, the infiltration of belief systems
Mhm.
and organizational structures around those belief systems to subtly or overtly shape one's actions
Mhm.
and the purchases they make
Mhm.
and the donations they make to the tithe or whatever
Mhm.
in the unification church.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it's like those ideas can take on physical form too. It's like I think of essays about people who left New York and then like had these revelations about how much they put up with in New York and how
Yes.
it was a kind of-
Yes.
it made me think it's like, oh, you mean New York is a kind of cult, actually.
Of course
So
it's a
where
cult.
you do, and a cult I lived in for many years and was
I think
very
we-
happy
I think
there.
we all
Yeah.
live
No,
there.
I didn't.
No, okay, you're out of the cult.
Yeah.
LA cult.
It's LA
Yeah,
cult. LA
yeah,
cult.
yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike
That's a good
it's like a cult that doesn't seem to want you. I guess that's maybe that's
Yes.
the most
It
insidious
rejects-
cult
yeah.
of all.
Yeah.
That one that's like
Everyone's
it's
cult
too
in
good.
Yeah.
Because cult's way too expensive. You can't have this cult.
Yeah.
I wanted that cult so
It's
bad.
like,
Yeah.
you know, Fire Festival, basically.
Basically, yes. Yeah.
Right.
24-hour fire
Yeah.
fest. It's but I mean like cities kind of are. They do sort of indoctrinate you. They change how you eat and
Mhm.
move
Yeah.
and what your
Mhm.
values are and what your hours are. I mean, they do all the things cults do.
Mhm.
They control what you eat and when you sleep
Yes.
and like what
What
like
you value.
it's like I live in this tiny box now and it's just fine. It's like yes, because New York says this is what you do.
And this
And-
is what's wonderful and I have achieved. And I love that how you play that angle with Vegas in every level where you just kind of spin it and you're looking at I don't think this book could be set anywhere else
Mm.
because of the meta narrative and the way that Las Vegas itself is kind of the symbol of the illusion and the distance between whatever we think is authenticity and
Mhm.
whatever is like being presented even beyond sleight of hand, where it's just like this kind of, what is it called? The uh delusion, the mass delusion. Um,
Mass illusion.
yes.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
first
yeah.
term, what is that?
I don't think of it,
Mm.
but where you,
Fully
yeah,
ado.
Yeah.
yeah, that's it.
Oh,
Fully ado.
Fully
fully
ado.
ado.
do.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
nice.
kind of what, because this is a love letter in many ways, a noir love letter
Yeah.
to the fetish of Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you start it there? Did you start the novel
No,
there?
the idea came later. I was thinking about, well, I hadn't really thought about it at the time. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that. I'll say, just to get really nerdy, sociology is born in the invention of the city, right? I mean, that it was bunches of people coming together with different religions, different languages, different cultures, all mixing together and having to figure out how to create a science to understand how all these people were to come together, right? And so I'm thrilled with the idea of that urban, kind of life is kind of like a cult. We are live from rural Western Massachusetts, by the way. And
Which is definitely not called.
No.
definitely not a cult. No, there's no cult here.
We dodged
No.
that bullet,
Yeah.
right?
Well, then it begs the question.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
As we shop at the co-op.
Exactly. So I do love that thought. I will also say that Anna's point is that about ruining you being able to leave the house.
Yeah, thanks.
I do, yeah. Very much my teaching strategy is to kind of ruin people's lives. So, I tell them that, you're not gonna be able to watch a movie, you're not gonna be able to watch a commercial and not think how this is manipulating me, or
Yeah.
and it is kind of a bummer. And I tell my students straight up that they should probably leave the class. And they don't. And they write me back years later and they're just like, you really did ruin so much of my movie watching. Now I can't really fully enjoy a television show.
Okay.
Sorry
huge-
for those who
big
all,
question.
yeah.
No, that's
Can we still have the suspension of disbelief
Oh.
of fiction and the emotional, visceral touch points that feel real?
Mm.
So how do we use fiction? How do we use the artifice to create emotionally gutting, devastating, delicious experiences? Because I was thinking that too as I was reading the book. Marshall Webb, Allie, we create fictional scenes, and this could be such a nerdy book, but it's very lived in.
Yeah.
It's not just an intellectual debate. It's not just a thought experiment or a sociological dissection. It's a lived, roaring kind of narrative. So what were the craft things that you thought of to make sure that it was kind of fully saturated in that human experience?
So the sociology that I do tends to be more qualitative based. It's not based on numbers, it's based on lived experience and interviewing people and talking and living with people. So we do what's called the walk along method, which is we just kind of go along with people in their daily lives and interview them, talk to them, see how they live their lives, ask them questions about what they think about things and then why they did the things that they did. And so from that perspective, I think I've been training to do that kind of think about that in that way. Lived life in that way for the past few decades. As far as craft goes as writing, this is my first go at it of telling it from more of a fictional lens. I really appreciate what you're saying, Margot, but also there are hidden footnotes and endnotes throughout this entire book. There's everything is connected to a study or a, kind of point of view, some book that I read, some, kind of riff that I do in my classes. It is all connected to research in some way. But I did have to kind of suspend a lot of that in order to tell what I hope is a decent story, right? And so there's some stuff where I left on the cutting room floor simply because it didn't serve the purpose of making it kind of a page turner. And very
I
much,
thought you did that really well, though, because it's clearly so undergirded by so many things that you've got a huge arsenal of data behind this somewhere, but like the places where it pokes through are very judiciously chosen. I thought like there are a couple
very
of like
strategic.
the Levesque stuff is good because you get it at a really crucial part of the story where you need need to be armed with that to keep going, but you don't keep stopping the story. And I feel like a lot of people who are, you know,
Right.
who are from academia and then turn to fiction
Right.
really can't resist
Mhm.
the kind of you know,
Well,
the
I'll tell you,
urge.
Scott, like, yeah, Marshall's lectures were initially going to be some sociological puzzle, and then it was matched with this kind of rollicking story of whodunit and murder and mayhem, right? And so that was the jettisoning of Marshall's sociology career, was what really realizing that that didn't really serve the purpose, because that was the initial idea, was to make a lecture fun. And I realized that you had to get rid of the lecture entirely for any fun to actually happen. And I say that as a
I like to play
teacher.
devil's advocate. Like, here's my
Great.
hot
Oh,
take.
nice.
Oh,
Nice. Ah,
Here's my hot
take a
take.
drink.
I feel like form allows us to rethink what is helpful or fun or interesting in that particular form.
Mhm.
So how many long literal trial scenes are there in legal thrillers?
Ooh.
Where you have
Right,
one
yeah.
character
Ooh.
in a Scott Turow, in a Robin
Yeah.
Geigel,
Ooh.
in a where
Yeah.
you're, you know, in all of those adaptations
Mhm.
of, you know, the 90s thrillers that I
Mhm.
love.
We all
Yeah. That we all love. Yeah,
We
absolutely.
all
Yeah.
again outing us.
Yeah.
But so there is room for that.
Yeah.
s-
Should I have written it?
I don't know.
Okay.
No, I just think it's really interesting that we can indulge. There are certain craft elements or aspects that are really rewarded, like, you know, a breakneck pace, for example. But
Mhm.
sometimes, what is the risk? Like, how do you do the risk assessment? Do you have any emotional? How do you care? Do you care
Mhm.
about the character? Where it's like three clones walking through the desert. What, you know, what?
we had a discussion about
Where
I
when you're
hope that that's a reference to some discussion that you had.
we tried.
Just like that everyone knows that old saw, oh, the three clones of the desert story. You know how it
It feels
goes.
like that. It
The
feels
start
like,
of a joke.
Yeah.
it does feel like that. It feels like the crazy scene from Waiting for Guffman,
Yeah.
where Corky St. Clair goes, "It's like that
yeah.
thing where you wonder how many
Bring us.
babies can you fit in the tile," and you're kind of like, "What is he talking about?" So it's so amazing.
Uh-huh. So
And maybe
clones in the desert.
Yes.
Yes. Three clones in the desert.
But I maybe I was filling in the blanks where it wasn't there because you fully fed the spring of these characters, and there was nothing, you know, it was very fleshed out and it wasn't flattened or reduced. So you could see the ways that these characters are affected by what they are invested in. But I'm just gonna make a case for, I think it'd be really interesting to see an entire lecture
Yeah.
in like a way
I don't know
that
if you picked
has
it up on
Scott Turow.
the microphone, but
saying.
you said you were very close
The
to saying
entire
fun,
lecture,
and then
yeah.
you stopped yourself from saying fun.
But I want to say,
like
Can
you
it be a
said,
lecture that
interesting.
somebody goes, "Objection"?
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Robin Geigel's legal thrillers are
Mhm.
incredible,
Mhm.
and there's like a 20-page, you know, not 20 pages, exaggeration, but they're fully they're given room to breathe for the veracity of how they function in the context of the legal theater. Similarly, but that's what I loved though, and I thought it those are some of my favorite touch points in terms of the scenes and scene work, which we also talked about recently on the train.
It's
People
so good.
pushing against
The
each
scene work
other.
is so good.
Yeah.
And like just like on a cinematic level, I so appreciate, and this does not give much away because this happens in like the earliest innings, but in one of these lectures, the lecturer is about to get started and notices on his lectern somebody has put a sample of his work. He's not just again, this does not give much away. He's a journalist or was a journalist.
Yeah.
And this is from his sort of, you know, salad days. But it's, you know, but that it bothers him because in real time, as he's trying to start his lecture, he is noticing his old work and he's bothered by the fact that there is something missing. He sees a mistake he made almost immediately from decades before, and and as the lecture goes on and as he tries to get the class started and as he struggles with all of that, he's actually kind of sort of imploding with what he's realizing he's made a mistake at the very dawn of his career. And that like that gives you, it's not just a one-way lecture at that point.
Mhm.
There is this powerful kind of like, you know,
Mhm.
dialectical energy in it now. And it's like, it's,
Yeah.
yeah. I just thought that was great. I could see him bothered by it, looking down at it,
Mhm.
trying to keep
Mhm.
his eyes on what he's doing. It's just really great push and pull. I
Hmm.
thought I was very impressed by that.
And the high stakes and the low stakes. It's like they're from the beginning, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, opening with, you know, what you open with, which since this is the beginning, I can say is a pretty vicious death.
Yeah.
I feel like you set the stakes really high right at the start. And for that reason, you know, as I'm reading this, like the whole time I kind of knew like this is heading somewhere life and death. And I really like that. And then also what you were just talking a little bit about, Scott. I think another area where you kind of brought the sort of sociological perspective onto the page in a very dramatic way was all the code switching that
Mhm.
happens
Mhm.
throughout felt very tense. You know, that these people are kind of forced to
Mhm.
be someone that they're not. And it's so much more heightened because they're in Vegas.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
And and the way that you kind of brought that attention
And it does
to
make it easier.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
I think especially for the character of Allie.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so early drafts of this, in the acknowledgements, I acknowledge the UMass Emerging Scholars Program. So every year I teach this group of students who are first-gen students. And if they take my class and they do a couple things, they end up getting into the Honors College at UMass. And it's a big, you know, kind of important moment in their careers. And so I have the privilege of teaching these students every year. And the last few years, I've said that you can, for a sociological book report, they can pick one of 6 books and read the books and write, you know, kind of connect the different ideas from the semester into the book report. And so I had them read early drafts of this book, and just, I mean, the code switching thing just speaks to them. You know, it is the most, you know, so the reason why it kind of goes, it got amped up in successive drafts in part because that really speaks to students who are first gen coming to college, not sure of how things are supposed to work, and understanding how cultural capital works in different environments, and being able to have the knowledge of code switching, not just being able to code switch, but strategically code switch is something that they absolutely you know, kind of picked up on as being one of the more, you know, interesting parts of the narrative. And so I think that maybe I reinforce that a little more because of that dynamic that I had successive drafts. Send money to the UMass Emerging Scholars Program, by the way.
Wait, oh,
You gotta
so
point.
funny
You
to
gotta
the-
point.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you so
We
much.
should all
Right
do it.
Yeah.
here. Yeah, right. Yeah, there.
And buy Clonica.
Yeah, come on again. Come on.
Best.
The
Yeah,
best.
fueled by
Right.
con-
Yes. Good callback. Um, so I did a thing. You want to know what you're I did a little quiz because there's a little quiz.
Okay.
And the quiz is called fact or fictional.
Oh
And
my
so I'm
gosh.
going to ask you about something, and you're going to guess if it's fact or fictional. Or
Fact.
yeah. A man sells the Brooklyn Bridge dozens of times to gullible guests. Fact or fictional?
Fact.
I'm gonna say fact. It's
Fact.
so weird.
No, it's fact.
George C.
I
Parker
didn't
pulled
give you
this
a
off.
chance. I didn't
You didn't get a chance.
because that didn't.
Sorry.
We're gonna grade
I
on a
pressed the
curve.
button.
We're gonna
Grade
grade.
on a
Yeah.
George C. Packer pulled this off in the 1900s. He even created fake deeds to sell the Brooklyn Bridge.
He did it.
Number 2, a fake psychic scams wealthy widows by claiming their late husbands want to contact them from beyond the grave with stock tips. Fact or fiction?
Oh, I mean, 100% fact.
Oh, I'm gonna go back on that.
It's fictional. This one's from a noir book called The Widow's Share by Gil Brewer.
However, how do we know that it's not fact? Question.
Right.
Double,
We're
it's
making
actually,
it so-
That it's not fact.
it's actually double fiction because Gil Brewer never wrote a book called The Widow's Share.
Oh,
Wait.
It's just a joke.
it's very elaborate.
Yeah, it's just a joke. It's just a joke. All right, the last one is let's see.
Wheels
pick one
within
last
wheels.
one. Oh, my favorite.
Is this Inception? Where there's like
That's
a
right.
green
That's
I
right.
think there is. Yeah.
Um,
and there's yeah. Elliot Page.
let's pick a good one. Oh, a woman convinces dozens of people that she's a German heiress with a trust fund and then scams banks, hotels, and friends.
Oh, facts. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super easy. That's it.
Run it again.
Okay.
Run it again.
Very nice
That's
with the
good.
accents.
That's really
Very good. All right.
You have to do the rest of the panel. I'm gonna be the Hell's Angel.
Right, yeah, yeah.
Well, and
And
that'd be other people. We're all gonna.
And I
Like,
don't know if you
we're
know,
already
we
born with
were
ourselves.
prepared to do a voice, but that was what the three of us agreed that we were
Oh,
gonna
uh-oh.
do. And so I hope,
I don't really do any voices.
yeah.
I can do the Lucky Charms guy.
That
Wait, you're just
That's
what
the
you
like
else. You just got the.
what?
Everybody's starting to get their hands on my Lucky Charms. That's really the only one I do.
I think we got it. Who are you?
That's-
Oh,
that's-
you're the only one now.
that's-
You don't have a character.
This is the character actually.
You're
This
George
is- I
Carlin.
am just I
Wrote
make, yeah.
The widow
Gilbert.
These people that I've known for over a decade have been pulling their leg this entire time. I'm not this at all. So what does somebody do after so this is the pub day, this is the big release day. And what do established authors do? What do people do after they've published? But click here to purchase the book at Belt Publishing or at High Five Books in Northampton, Massachusetts. What do people do? What did you do for your book birthday? And what should I be doing after this?
Let's go.
Let's just go.
Let's just go.
Mhm. Did you do anything to celebrate? Did you?
Yes, I
Yes.
think it's I have to say we have a toast to the characters.
Yes.
Like, you gotta honor your characters.
Oh, I love that.
You know, think
Oh,
of like
nice.
what they would wanna-
Marshall, Allie, Webb,
Yeah.
Irv.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm throwing in
that's
Irv. I
a great
appreciate
idea.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. The Irv is the non-viewpoint character, so I appreciate that.
But I liked that character because he was not what you I mean, all these characters were not what you expect. Like Howie, like
Mhm.
you meet this guy
Mhm.
who's like, he's at a bachelor party. He's, this kind of what you would imagine a guy at a bachelor party in Vegas. And then he turns out to be writing a book based on like music, on like underappreciated, was it like folk songs?
Yeah,
Jingles.
Yeah.
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 His job is doing jingles,
His
but
job
he's
is doing
writing an album called Book Covers, and so it's cover songs that are about books, right? Is that what it is? It's my book, I should know.
It's like a Melville story or
yeah.
something.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Oh, sorry. The unreliable
Benita
narrator.
Serena. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Irv is based on Irving Goffman, who's a sociologist,
Yeah.
who he has a presentation of self and everyday life is his most kind of famous work, and it is based on this idea of that dramaturgy, that theater is the lens through which we can analyze social life, and so the character has a theater background and a perspective, and he does kind of the setting up of the setups and the interactions. And Irving Goffman is probably one of the more famous sociologists, and he's really known for this idea that we can look at our everyday lives. We use scripts, we use masks, we use props. We have we wear costumes. We all dressed. We apparently were supposed to dress up in jackets, and I didn't know. There's all these expectations of a scene that we've constructed here, right? If you veer away from the script, you freak people out. So you go to the grocery store and they ask how you're doing, and you go like,
Well,
Monica, I don't know. You just watch the cashier freak out, right?
Right.
Because it doesn't go against the script that we're expecting, right? And so Irv, I thought was very much Howie's is one of my fairy godfathers. Howie Becker is another sociologist. So many of these characters are either based on real life Las Vegas denizens, who are people who are anyone who's lived in Las Vegas for a certain amount of time maybe would recognize a few of the characters in here. And then anyone who's a sociologist would recognize some of the characters that are kind of slightly inspired by. I wouldn't say entirely inspired by, because some of the people, I don't want to pretend that some of the people who are real life people and sociologists were like cold-blooded killers or anything like that. So lightly inspired.
we know for sure.
Yeah.
That's true. Irving Goffman was known as being called the little knife in grad school, but that was because he was really critical of other people, not because he was a killer. that we know
That we know of.
that we know of.
That's a funny nickname to get. I don't know if I'd
The
be-
little knife.
Right.
He's also short.
Yeah. No.
He was a card counter, and his last project was based in Las Vegas, and he was going to be studying. He was a card counter, and he apparently trained as being a blackjack dealer, and so he passed away before he could really publish much on it. But the part of the lore in Las Vegas was that Irving Goffman was running around kind of studying casinos, and so that in grad school, that was absolutely something that I was fascinated by. And so there are, kind of seeds of doing this project that were done back, kind of started back then. And that's definitely one of them, that history of Irving Goffman.
Wow.
Is it? Wow. Yeah.
No, it is
Yeah.
kind of wow. He was running studying. Just I don't know, somebody who was, I don't know,
Mhm.
studying because like just like
Mhm.
what a rich trove of sociology is.
So one of the books that he did was about
Absolutely.
asylums, and so he studied insane asylums. And what he found is that people who come in with various different kinds of manifestations of mental illness conformed to the local norms of the institution. So they might be doing something outside of the institution, but then they kind of get socialized into mental illness in the institution. And he was I think he was the
Wow.
athletics director at the place, and so he sat and kind of observed everyone, and did his analysis that way. So yeah, he's one of the more fascinating people in my field.
That is
Personally-
so
personally.
interesting. I read this book called Strangers to Ourselves by Rachel Aviv, I think is her name. She's a
Great.
yeah. And it was
Yeah.
part of the premise of that book was that when people are given diagnoses, they tend to veer into their diagnoses, like they will lean into it
Yeah.
in acting more like
Yeah.
the way that their diagnosis, says they should act.
Mhm.
And how this is something that nearly happened to her as a young child who was institutionalized. And how she kind of veered away from that. And I just think that's so interesting. It kind of lines up with what you're saying, like about
100%.
the sort of you are socialized when you're given a diagnosis. Even if like the point is to help you, like there's also going to
To
be
give
that
you
other
information.
yeah, the other part is going to be like telling you how you should be.
Mhm.
And now the diagnosis meets you more than halfway, thanks to the internet and social media.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's like all those tendencies have always been there, but
Mhm.
now it's like there's those tribes will come and find you.
It's like an identity.
You know?
Yeah.
Right. It's like it's
Yeah.
it's not any
Mhm.
different. That's It's great that he studied insane asylums and casinos.
Any difference.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. Institutions.
No windows.
Yeah.
No clocks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Trapped inside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those very things
Yeah.
that create that
Yeah.
sense of destabilization
Right.
and
Mhm.
requiring almost like a type of, I don't know, dependence, hardcore dependence,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
not independence
Mhm.
necessarily, of like staying within that one slot machine.
Yeah.
Because then people come by and give you free chronic
Yeah.
cokes and,
It's probably a salad bar in
Right.
both of them.
the
Yeah.
salad bar down
Yeah.
the hall.
Because what does Webb say? One, it's like you have to keep your eyes up,
Mhm.
look above the machine.
Yes,
Mhm.
to know where you're
But
going.
yeah.
The next time I go to Vegas, I'm doing that.
I know.
like
That's-
being in Vegas for that reason that I
I don't
always
like Vegas.
I mean, I like going to Vegas, but
Hmm.
every time I've been in a casino, because I don't gamble, it's not like very exciting for me. But when I'm in there, I always feel like I don't know how I'm gonna get out. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know where
Yeah.
I am. I can't find
And that's
it. It's just-
intentional.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Aside of
Oh,
that,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can't you can't find an easy exit.
Mhm.
And the lighting is always at that weird twilight.
Yeah.
That
You never know what time it is.
That occurred. Somebody told me that I was in the Venetian once when I was relatively like early 20s. One of my jobs was going not even to the cool Consumer Electronics Show, but to the
Oh.
Video Software Dealers Association convention, which was for DVDs.
Mhm.
And it's for what kids, there were these things called DVDs.
Yeah.
They were so small.
Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
they had movies on them.
Yeah.
All kinds
That's
of
how you
things.
got movies.
And they made they were very important for a while, believe it or not.
Yeah.
We traded these things. Archaeologists will excavate that. They'll find the DVD layer
Mhm.
in a
Yeah,
rubble, and they'll be like,
yeah.
these were very important to them. They traded them back and
Or
forth.
powered cars.
But I would go there, and so we spent a lot of time at the Venetian.
DVD
Like
player.
I was in the DVD department of there was a department, kids, there was a department of a magazine.
Yeah.
So many words here you don't
Yeah.
understand.
I think yeah, it's the premise
there was
that anyone
a-
over under
It's
called a
45
yeah.
is watching this. It's great.
I know
Yeah.
it's great. Kids are gonna love it.
Kids,
Yeah.
Kids are gonna love this.
They're gonna love my Hells Angels.
They're
They're gonna love all this.
Clonopin, definitely Clonopin,
Clonopin are gonna
salad
be very
bars.
excited.
They're gonna love all.
Salad bars. This is great. It's a whole culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Consumer Electronics Show absolutely like
It was
runs
nuts.
Las Vegas.
It was
It's bonkers.
The big things that were happening, and I feel like they happened right on top of each other.
Mhm.
Were CES,
Mhm.
this DVD thing, and almost right on top of both of these, the massive adult film expo.
Correct.
And like
Correct.
these were like bang bang
Same
bang.
week.
Yeah.
Well, they were like successive
Yeah.
weeks. It was
Yeah.
like a whole season of,
Yeah.
and the place was just packed.
Right.
And I think there was a lot, there was a lot of flow. What I know, we were supposed to be covering the DVD part, right? And it was in this huge, blimp hanger size place. All these different, and what I noticed over time was like, no one is in here. They had all left and gone to the adult film expo. Basically, it's like that was
Right.
like, this was their cover, like selling. It's like we're selling National Geographic DVDs. It's like, no, you're
Mhm.
not. You're in line to meet, whoever was the adult film star du jour. But like, yeah. Anyway,
There's
yeah.
there's 100% a chapter in here that was about the consumer electronics, the rodeo. There are these big, one of the reasons
Right.
why Las Vegas is, you said like, there's only one place where this could be in some way. And part of it is because of that those successive waves of, conventions and
Like,
kind of
This
sales.
one week.
Exactly,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a rich place to run a guerrilla marketing, campaign. It is, and for some reason it just didn't fit right. I couldn't figure out how to kill somebody at a consumer electronics show. I don't know. It was my own
Thank God
failing.
you
I know. Yeah. Electrocution. A DVD, like a broken DVD. Yeah.
But doesn't understand what it is. They try to put their hand in it.
Book number 2. There's always a good.
Very David Cronenberg.
What? Oh, very
That's great.
Crash.
Old Laserdisc players.
Yeah.
Believe it or
That was
not,
a sequel of Crash, actually.
that was the sequel of Crash. That's right. It was a different kind of Crash. Yeah.
Different body of horror. Yeah.
Our fabulous help here is saying that there's a question from the Q&A. Yeah.
John, this is DF. Does the diagnosis, going back to what you were talking about, does the diagnosis give one a license that defines behavior?
Does the diagnosis give one license for their behaviors?
That's a good question.
I would love to hear what
Love
you would
my
have to
pick,
say.
right?
Yeah, that's it.
I like the question. I wonder if it kind of assumes that the person with the diagnosis is trying to like get one over on the people around them. I wonder if it's more unconscious than that. That's what I would think.
Mhm.
That it's not on purpose, but once you've been given the diagnosis of, I don't know, just off the top of my head, OCD, then suddenly you're hand washing all the time. You're like, well, I have a reason for it. Maybe it excuses a little bit, but I don't know. I personally don't think that anybody who has been given such a diagnosis of a mental health disorder necessarily wants it. But maybe it does. Maybe it does kind of excuse it, at least to them on some level.
Well, it depends on the personality of the diagnosed individual
Yes.
too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there might be some people who imprint on, I mean, I know people who imprint on absolutely anything that
Yeah.
they're given. And I don't know if the diagnosis is correct or not, but I know they'll
Yeah.
embrace it because it's
Yeah.
in their nature to embrace
Mhm.
everything that's in front of them and to kind of like, try to just kind of mimic it or become it or something like that. They're just some people who fill all
They're
available
primed.
spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah. The characters of the book, that
Right.
they're the marks.
Right.
Yeah.
In ways.
The marks and the people who don't think they're marks, but
Yeah.
but yeah,
But they're
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that as someone who has a late in life diagnosis of ADHD, it's like a way that you can make so many disparate aspects of yourself and your story fit together. But like anything else, how do you bring your best self to that and not use it as like a get out of jail free card, except for when it's really convenient.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There are times
It's
when
really helpful. It's actually amazing. Like, I can't do it.
can't be there. It's my ADD.
Sorry.
It's hard to say. As someone who's been very tempted many times to invent allergies to get out of business commitments.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I get
There are
all the-
reinforcements.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
yeah, there's benefits.
Yeah.
I think it goes back to code switching too,
Yeah.
which is like, if people realize that you have this diagnosis, that allows you to act a certain way, maybe. But if they don't, and you have to
Yeah.
play it straight for the day, like that's kind of what they're doing in this book. Is they are today I'm this person, today I'm that person. But and I think that's also part of the darkness of this book is that who is anyone really if they're
Yeah.
always putting on a performance?
Right.
And I think that is sort of the thing that, like, from a noir perspective, that is maybe the most haunting about this book, is it kind of raises that question of who is anyone, including this group
Literally.
of guerrilla marketers. Like, aren't we all kind of to some extent doing the same thing? And I think that's the question that to me is sort of the darkest question of all of the book.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Mhm.
That's the most kind of unnerving. And when we talk about noir, the way I read it, and what I love about it is that it spills beyond the page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Oh.
it invests a type of unnerving energy in just about everything. That leaps beyond and kind of scales beyond.
Yeah.
So that it's not that, no tea, no shade on like horror, or there's a situation of like, procedural or something where there's a crime, but it almost creates that just unsettling, just like when your students write to you and say, yeah, you were right. But I think
Right.
that's right. And the great
Yeah.
success of the book.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, I think that's, really hard to do, and you really masterfully did it.
Yeah, it's
So
very
thank
much
you for being-
motivated. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome.
in the best way.
Freaked us all out.
Yeah, it is one of the insights of Irving Goffman. So is there a sense of self? Irving Goffman says that the self comes off of the scene. And not that there's some internal self, but in fact our self is kind of is socially constructed, right? And so the cynical, scary part of that then is there a self, right? Is there
Yeah.
something, or are we consistently malleable to the like world around us? And so the sense of identity and self being shook in the book is very much works with the literature, right? And it is kind of scary. That's one of those questions where I ask my class, I'm like, do you feel like that there's a core sense of self that you have? And they say, yes, absolutely. And then you start asking them, okay, how do you act differently in these different scenes? And you start kind of unpacking their sense of self and how it actually it inflects and changes. And code switching is a part of it, absolutely, but not entirely. We are obviously constructing something coming off the scene. We're assuming that there are people out there beyond John Sisti, who are watching either now in
I
real
was just
time or
doing this for
not.
John Sisti.
John,
Yeah.
yeah, John Sisti's definitely, yeah, absolutely correct.
John.
Yeah, absolutely correct. But that happens all the time, right? Whether you're talking to your mother, whether you're talking to your girlfriend, whether you're talking to your kids, whether you're talking to strangers, whether you're talking to YouTube, there is a different version of yourself that appears, right? And so I really wanted to kind of shake that a little bit in that kind of David Lynchy, what are we doing here kind of way.
And I think it also impacts the characters like Webb, who is a person of color as well. There's still the dominant narrative on like who gets to define. The power to define is, I think, certainly the power of the moment, but it has always been. So I really appreciate stories that tease those boundaries of, even if you think you know oneself, it's almost a requirement to check that against the dominant power, majority of how they get to define that as well.
Yeah. Are you running your own con?
Right.
Or is somebody else?
Are you running your con or their con?
Yeah.
And how much do you rebel if it's all kind of still led by the, tyrannical hegemony of Trump and Vance, etc.?
Well, Webb is W.B. Du Bois, and so one of his key ideas is the kind of having this kind of majority minority identity within
double
you,
consciousness.
right?
Right.
Exactly
The
correct.
duality,
The duality of that, and that you see the world through this kind of veil, and but that you see yourself through it, right? And so that it very much is kind of part of it, and I love the update to Trump Vance that you're referring to. That was a real
Well, Vance is
Yeah.
Vance is perfect for that. Vance is a perfect, Russian dolls person, like a complete fake. Like an
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and I say this as like a guy who has like, I mean, I am from the South and went to a school in the Northeast and absolutely played some of the same cards. I mean, this is a guy like, I almost like game recognizes game. I'm kind of like, like well done, well done, hillbilly elegy guy. Like that's really great. And the way he modulates his accent, I mean, it's the same thing that
Yeah.
any group knows about other groups. It's like when you hear somebody playing the game and switching the codes, and there's a certain amount of respect for it because like it's sort of like that's great. I mean, I remember I had a writing teacher in college who was also from the South, and we talked about that a little bit. And he played it up so hard. He did, this, and yet he talked about other white Southern writing instructors who did the same thing he was doing, but he spoke of it very disparagingly. He was, I mean, this is a guy who was always like everything he did was just like about down home, so everything, his fiction was that too, and it was kind of like it was competent Faulkner retread, and it was like everything. It was like, and I love the guy. He was actually I sound disrespectful. He was actually a fantastic writer and amazing teacher. But one time he said like he was like I don't play like some of these people, and he named one of the people, and then he was like I don't play like her. She's oh, y'all got some peanuts to put in my Coca-Cola over here, and I'm like that is exactly you. You are 100% boiled peanuts in the Coca-Cola. Like that is it's like what are you talking about? It's like
Crazy.
it does sound awful. It is. It's awful. It's like, but no, I mean, but again, he felt he's in control of his time. So I mean, like, there's that great scene where Webb walks into the pool area, and there are the three old guys who are always around the pool. This doesn't give any plot away, and they all take a guess out loud about who he is and what he's doing, and he kind of waits for he's almost grading their responses, and it's kind of like way off, competent. One guy goes, maybe he's a drug dealer. He's like, there it is. Maybe I'm the drug dealer. I don't know. And someone's like, no, I don't think so. And he's just kind of like, he's almost selecting the one that's the most like, that recognizes what he's trying to do. And there's so many, layers of being a spectator of your own life in that are really, really fascinating. Anyway, that's what I think.
It is a city of mirrors, and so like one of the things I was really interested in was like all the reflections that people get in these social interactions, and so that very much was kind of a metaphor in the book, but then that's one of those moments I think, right, where you're thinking about the character's sense of self in being reflected on by these other folks.
And also him being half Korean, half Black, I think it's part of that too, like really illustrates the way that like this has been who he is from the very beginning, somebody who's part of two different worlds and probably acts differently in each of those two worlds. So it becomes like, or it is like as natural as breathing first, I would think, for him.
I mean there's great liberation in embracing like the fact that like, oh, I've got all these cards I can play. It's like being like a James Bond super spy. I've got all these gadgets. Which one am I going to use? And they're all just parts of identity that you can kind of and that's actually, it's really exciting and liberating. And on the other side, it's like, well, it means I'm a total fake and I'm complete, but and those two things live together, in a funny sort of way. That's I maybe the new generation doesn't care as much about that. I mean, I feel like I'm an old, Gen X geezer. And DVD loving, my DVD. I just sit leisurely. I have stacks of it. That's what we do, you old Gen X people. We sit home and we count our DVDs.
We trade them.
We trade them. We trade them with each other. I
fast forward.
Uncle, I know. I wait.
You wait.
Fast forward.
Then you got to back up a little bit to get
exactly.
The scene.
That's
I had to do that.
I do a lot of that. A lot of hitting the pause button.
I'm sure you're going to remember your point.
I'm totally going to remember my point. My point is that like we were so concerned with authenticity. We were people who like venerated like the punks who came before us, and the sort of like
turn the volume.
Those were people who were exactly Christian Slater.
Pump
it up.
And that Turn Up the
Reality
Volume was
bites.
actually a much lower quality straight to DVD
Yeah,
movie
I think
starring Eric Stoltz.
Again,
Yes.
movies
Like,
we used to go
was
straight to
Almost exactly the
Yeah,
same
it was
story.
which is authentic, which is truly
Was the
authentic.
feel
Yeah,
authentic
same, but slightly
yeah.
different.
But we were still, I mean, our generation is still obsessed with authenticity in a weird sort of
Oh,
way.
yeah.
And I feel
Yeah.
like,
But again,
Gen Z, Gen Alpha,
But look at
what are you even talking about?
Yeah, they
The-
don't even.
the president.
Yeah.
He says it like it is.
Mhm.
It's a cultural capital that
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
part of the gaslighting though. Is because what is complexity but authenticity? Authenticity lives in complexity.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And yet
Yeah.
people are simplifying, dumbing it down to
Hmm.
these easily
Hmm.
repeatable phrases and bumper sticker slogans, but in fact it's like something you can never really reduce.
Can I say
It's like a conspiracy. You say I can't reduce it. I can. Here, I'm just going to say something offensive.
Yeah.
Now that stopped the discussion. It must be authentic.
I think authenticity is that
That's
door in the horror movie where you're running down the
Yeah.
hallway and you just never quite reach it. It just seems like it's not possible to
I
really
did
get.
it today.
You did it today?
Do
Yeah.
it.
That was actually
Yeah.
You need to redesign that hallway.
Yeah.
yeah.
You're wasting a lot of
Small.
time.
What hallway is your longest hallway is like 7 feet long.
You painted it, you should know.
These are houses in Western Massachusetts.
Yeah.
There are
Yes.
there are no long
Very
hallways
small.
here.
Sponsored
Yeah.
by Clonopin.
Hmm.
That's how you lengthen your hallway.
Was there another question or was there is? Oh my gosh. Hmm.
I was wondering that as authors, when your characters are based on real life people, how do you handle inquiries on that?
Ooh, good
Yes,
question.
great question.
Don't do it. Is my answer.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to hear what other people think.
Anna, you want to start?
I am very careful about that. I don't want. There certainly are characters in, especially the book that I'm writing now, that are based on real people, and I'm very careful about that to mix things up a little bit to make sure that that if they recognize themselves, they can't prove it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, really, that's it. And just to take little pieces from different people that and not to just like take a whole person wholesale, because yeah, that could be very painful for somebody, including the writer, if they.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Hmm.
I mean, I just more veer towards imagination
Mhm.
and the darker aspects of that. I think everybody has qualities and or characteristics that, you can think of like, oh, that's really interesting. This person that only uses a knife as a spoon, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Those quirks I think are really interesting because I love specificity. Specificity is my like craft obsession. Moving away from the general, playing away from the general into the specific
Mhm.
frictions of people and characters. But I don't really, there is no 33-year-old nun with covered in tattoos and who's like genuinely believes in Jesus Christ and also is an anarchist.
Yeah.
So
I want to believe that.
I mean, there's one in Portland,
real-
Oregon, but
yeah,
not in
yeah.
New Orleans, right? I mean, that's
Are you admitting to me that in your next book there's a character who only uses a knife as a spoon?
yes. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah, I like
this
that.
is the first.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Okay, so that's
a
me.
first.
So that's me.
That's
That's me, and I'm suing.
Well,
I
let
mean,
me
yeah.
just give you these.
I never should have done that in front of you.
I will pay you, and these are actually kids. This is a DVD.
That's
an
what
ancient-
That's what it
It's
is.
an ancient DVD.
$dollars right here.
If you're an
The
intellectual
Phoenicians
property
made
lawyer,
them out of-
if you're a lawyer and would like to support Scott in his claim against Margot Douaihy, click this button here, and you'll go directly to
It's gonna be a
Scott.
lot of buttons on this.
Yeah, there's so many buttons. All our faces will be completely.
We've got at least
filled.
5 buttons. We're gonna make so much
Exactly.
money.
I thought that right. Does the money we'll share?
Where
it.
does it
Oh,
go?
yeah.
We share. it. We'll share. it. I mean, collectively. Yeah, very good.
My Hells Angels character alone is worth like the
Right,
character rights are just
They're
Yeah,
rolling
yeah.
in right
Yeah.
now. I'm assuming.
Just character
Mhm.
composite here. I
Mhm.
think you got to take this.
You as a Hell's
I
Angel.
think it's got legs.
Yeah.
It's an unassuming.
Got wheels.
It's got
It's got wheels.
he doesn't have legs. He doesn't have legs.
Aw.
This helps this character.
This
Let me
is-
tell you.
doesn't, yeah.
This is a complex character. He's actually all
Mhm.
from. I'm just gonna describe it.
Yeah,
Kids,
yeah,
for
please.
The kids. I'm gonna
Yeah, the
describe it.
kids.
From the waist down, he
Yeah.
is the bike.
Yeah, like a centaur,
It's-
but like a
Oh,
but
the
a
bike.
bike.
Yeah, no, he's
Motor-
the Harley.
motor-
He's the Harley.
He's a Harley.
He's Harley from the waist down,
Mhm.
and that's
The centaurly.
and that's on that's the tagline on the book. Harley from the waist down.
Angels.
All it was so good. It was so good.
This
This is a very good
this
beer.
was
I
not
like this.
beer.
Yeah,
This
that
was
was-
something else.
I mean, on that note, I think we can finish up. Does that sound right? Okay, great. I'd like to bring people to tears. So I'd like to thank Scott Brown, Ana Reyes, and Margot Douaihy. I would also like to thank Anne Trubeck from the team from Belt Publishing, who were so kind enough to write a sociological thriller. Thank you to Liz and Sticks and Bricks. So if you do come
Yes.
and visit Northampton, Massachusetts, this is a beautiful space. And all of this can be your home. Your home can look exactly like this.
Yes.
I would also like to thank Tracy Olson, who does loads of author support and consulting, from
Tracy's
companionship to pressing buttons like this, and then reading some questions.
If you're an author, contact Tracy.
If you're an author, tracyolson.com. And with that, thank you very much. Everybody have a fantastic evening. Oh, nice. We
That
all
was
waved
amazing.
bye. Well,